Regal Movie Masters. Unlimited.
This is the Regal Movie Masters Unlimited podcast where we indiscriminately watch every goddamn movie that comes out at the local theater. The Movie Masters today are Justine.
Hi.
Brent.
Hello.
Dylan.
What's up?
I'm Colin. We got 3 films to knock out here. We got Beau is Afraid, Evil Dead Rise, and Chevalier. Brent's got a solo mission for you. I got a game of A.I.MBD. It's tearing up the charts, this game. People are going crazy for this A.I.MBD. I don't know that. I haven't heard anything about that, and I know I haven't heard anything about it because I checked our email, which is moviemasters760@gmail.com. That's moviemasters, plural, 760. Send us an email. We'll chat it up if you want to have anything discussed on the show. Defaults to anonymous, so if you want us to use your name, say, hey, you can use my name, and then we'll read your comment and your name in our next episode. But today we have some movies to discuss. We got the big new Ari Aster movie, Beau is Afraid. It's A24. It's a good time.
It's a 24-hour long movie.
It's it's a scant 36 hours. Goes by real quick. It's
24 hours. Yeah.
Ari Aster did Midsommar and Hereditary. Joaquin Phoenix is in it. A whole bunch of folks are in it. It's not an ensemble cast. It's just Joaquin.
Just a bunch of bit parts.
Right, but man, you.
But if the movie was shorter, they'd be significantly more of a factor. Like Nathan Lane.
Yeah.
You know, like if it was like an hour and a half movie,
you might get cut.
he might get.
But I've struggled so hard to figure out how to explain this movie in terms of a plot. It's a young man. No, it's an adult man. It's an old middle-aged man, Beau, the titular Beau, who is going to visit his mom, and just a series of unfortunate events happens, calamities, and he is left in just a whole bunch of difficult situations on the way. That's essentially the plot. But I've seen this movie described as a horror comedy, surreal art house film. Yeah, it is definitely, I would say, surrealist above all. Like it's definitely probably the big important thing, regardless of genre, because I don't think it fits in any kind of genre, nor does it purport to. I would even say including like art house, which is like the laziest descriptor of a movie genre. You just say, oh, it's an art house movie, and then you don't have to like worry about if it's a comedy or drama or whatever. But above all, it is just not a grounded in reality kind of movie, and I think so everything that happens in it is just chaos in a sense. So yeah, it's definitely not confined by a genre like that. But man, I'm smitten by this movie. I have like a lot of really nice things to say. Does anyone want to talk before I start to really bloviate here?
I just got out of it, and I was really impressed. This is one that I texted Colin earlier today and said, thank you for being the canary in the coal mine, because I saw the runtime, and I saw just how impossible it was for people to concisely describe what it is.
Right.
And I just like, all right, like if Colin goes and sees it, tells me to see it, I'm gonna go see it. And sure enough, like you said, it's probably the best movie you saw this year.
It's my favorite movie I've seen this year. Yeah, and I don't know if that's a grand statement or not.
It's special. I think they pulled off some actual, you know what I mean? Like how they talk about like movie magic.
Right.
There's some straight up magic in that movie. There's some stuff. I mean, you could break down like how they did it.
Of course.
But just watching it, like going in there and sitting down and watching it, it's cool to be kind of blown away.
Yeah, I saw storytelling in the theaters.
Yeah,
and that's one that you just kind of arbitrarily. I think I liked Happiness was before storytelling. Yeah, I was just a big old Happiness fan, and so storytelling was out, and I was like, oh, let's see this. And that movie came out, like 20 years ago, and I'm still thinking about being in the theater watching it. And this movie kind of, I think, is going to stay with me in the same way, just having Like the experience of watching it, I think I was smiling like the entire time.
Which hour, do you have a favorite hour from the movie?
Jeez. I mean, the first one goes hard.
It's nuts.
And I think it's such a high wire attempt to like get you into this world that Beau is in, setting the tone of the film.
Yeah.
That to me, I think is the biggest challenge, because it's not like the tone and like the rules of the world are kind of like the major player, and that's what sets it apart from other movies. It's not necessarily like an acting style or the way it's shot. It's just this world in which it takes place. So establishing that world and making you, the viewer, like kind of cool with seeing just whatever happening on screen, that is really impressive. So if I had to, I mean, so that's a weird question. But
the reason I
know
asked
what you're
is
saying.
I feel like it's like you can almost divide the movie up into 3 parts, or at least I was doing that as I went, because the first hour I felt like they're kind of establishing a world of an unhealthy brain.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, we're like, whose perspective is this? At first you're like, am I
Yeah.
getting it from his perspective, or what perspective am I supposed to have? And like my takeaway was just like, okay, this is a mentally ill person because he's getting prescriptions, he's going to therapy, he's having trouble just like functioning in life. Second hour I looked at as like the Nathan Lane show. He just came in and just fucking rocked it. Third hour kind of started with like, okay, we should say that like this movie definitely has some Truman Show and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind in its DNA. Just before the third hour, it introduces like somewhat like older Wes Anderson vibes. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like when he stumbles into the acting troupe out in the woods. You know what I mean? That was very heavy, and that's where like it really took off for me in terms of like, oh my god, what am I watching? Because like it got animated, and that third-ish hour, I would say like it at least started the way it started was the most exciting part for me.
I would say that was my least favorite part of the movie.
The third part?
The forest part, the whole part.
Really?
Yeah.
Even
I think that the cool thing about the movie was establishing the crazy world that he lives in.
Yeah.
And so to take you out of it entirely, it's kind of like, we don't care about this. Who cares about this?
Really? Okay.
I think that part really, to the director, was summing up the whole movie.
Yeah.
So it sort of felt like, why are you telling me what the movie is inside of the movie? It seemed like that was like a short film or a short animated film.
They did that in the second hour too, where he's watching himself on security and he pauses it and then he realizes that he can fast forward and rewind. They show you frames from the rest of the movie, so you kind of like they're disparate the way it's shown in the second hour, but as you watch the next hour and a half or so, it shows you how they get there.
At least it's still in the same world, and so if he's watching that movie and being able to see like what's coming next, that would still fit with his he knows his life. He knows the trajectory of his life. He can see it playing out already, and so I would buy that. I just think like the whole animated part and stuff was it was a lot. I might have forgiven it too if it had been during like when those girls made him do some kind of drugs.
Right.
That would have made sense to me, but I don't know why it was in that world, I guess, is my only thing.
I just think through the whole entire movie is like through the lens of, some degree of mental illness. So that broke down a lot of barriers for storytelling and even perspective for me, because I was just kind of like, because they broke a lot of walls, in the telling of the story. And I'm glad you brought up the drug scene, because the way they shot that was pretty awesome. There was just like an overall haze to it, like, and you could feel it visually communicated what he might be feeling effectively. I dug that.
And I think the drug scene, I'm trying to remember what's revealed, and I guess I'm trying not to like ruin the movie for people, but at this point you're listening to this, so I'm going to talk about everything. I think the drug sequence, they kind of get into something about his past, because you're kind of learning about his past through the movie. And the theater scene, I kind of appreciate, one, as just showing that he kind of has a like imagination that can go off into these, like it's sucked into the play. That's how I saw it. It's like he's just getting absorbed into this play watching it. And I think it gives you one of the more important pieces of like hard information of the movie, which is that he's been trained or indoctrinated from his mom at an early age to believe that as soon as he comes inside of a woman, he's going to die, because that's what happened to his father and his father's father. So like, I'm thinking of the animation scene as like completely extraneous, but you do get information out of it, and visually it's really nice. And I don't see it as like seen through the eyes of a mentally ill person at all. Like, I think everything about the movie is very literal. Like, I just accept that this is the world that he's operating in. You know, it's not.
Love that.
Yeah, it's not like, I don't think there's like a lot of effort made, especially on the filmmaker's part, to be like, what's real, what isn't. Is this an unreliable narrator, or it's just all kind of absurdity and all kind of surreal. I was really in my head about comic books watching this, because I was trying to like, I don't know, get some sort of like a lifeboat to be like, what is this like, you know? And I was reminded a lot of Peter Bagg and Daniel Klaus and Robert Crumb and those early I guess Bagg and Klaus would be like the sons of Crumb, but that approach to comic book storytelling where it's just, I read those comics now and I still really love them, but they are so completely anachronistic. Like, the values in those comics and everything in them is just so not like in keeping with modern sensibilities. And they're not that old. We're talking in some cases comics from the 90s, you know, like 30 years ago, but they might as well be from a different universe and just what they choose to share about the authors, you know.
A lot.
A comic book
a lot
is like, you know, pen and paper, and it's in those cases just one person doing it all. So it's like there's not a lot to lose. But with this movie, I feel like it had that same kind of honesty and like oversharing and just earnestness. And I don't know, maybe because I was in that headspace, I was really reminded of Jim Woodring's Frank. I mean, those are like completely psychedelic, wordless comics in an absolutely surrealist world. It's no humans in it, really. And I think when I'm reading those comics, I'm not thinking at all about like, well, what's, you know, grounded, what like the physics of the world or what it's grounded in. It's just like, here's some crazy shit. Here's a horrible thing happening. There's a pig man. He's getting cut up with a knife and now he's running away. And now there's this weird balloon shaped thing. I was completely watching the movie like in the same way that I would read one of those comics where it's not grounded in anything. So I saw everything in the movie as just kind of serving this, well, two ideas. One, that the world is just a cruel and inhospitable place towards meek people. Like, if you're just a small, useless person. And I mean, I love that this movie gives like space to that. Just some people have had every opportunity to be successful, but they just aren't. And there's no systematic oppression to blame. There's no like overbearing circumstances. There's just lost losers in this world. And
they're just people who have been damaged by their parents.
Oh yeah, of course. And didn't have the tenacity to fight against it. And I think the movie does a lot to talk about how, you know, Beau has not made a lot of choices in life or taken control of his environment, and also kind of makes you sympathetic towards why, because they spent a lot of time on his issues with his mom. Shout out to middle-aged men with mommy issues. I love being seen and represented in this film. We are a scorned bunch. We don't get a lot of shine in this life, you know, but man, I loved seeing so much focus on that and like the repercussions of that. So on one hand, it's that the world is just a harsh and inhospitable place. If you're just a weak, feeble person that just doesn't have a lot of gifts or talents or drive or anything, like, you still exist, and it's just a rough existence. And also, while that is happening, the world is totally fucking insane. You know, like, it really is bonkers. It really is crazy. So it's, you know, it does seem like teenagers are running around just chugging bottles of pills, and there's lunatics just running around on the streets. Like, it feels that way, maybe not just because you're a little off or scared or oversensitive. Maybe it's just that fucking nuts, because both things can be true. Dylan, you liked the street level.
The first hour?
Yeah.
Yeah. I wasn't sure what I was getting into. But once he started walking around his neighborhood and like you just see crazy shit, like a kid like looking up like a gun, him like having to start down the street to run to his house while like just chaos is happening in the middle of his street like it's normal. I don't know. I was like, wow, I talk about feeling being seen.
Right.
I literally see the world like that. Like I'm not even joking. Like I go outside and that's literally what I see. I really like that part. I kind of agree with Justine on the wood part.
Right.
But I just have a different take. That's
Dude,
it.
it's a A24 Films production of an A24 production presented by A24. You got to have the woods in it. You know what I mean? Like, that's probably part of the deal.
Yeah, no. My only take is that, like, I think this movie's more about, because again, talk about feeling seen.
Right.
I think it's about, like, that part weirdly is, like, the insecurity about having kids. And then, like, what if you just lose them? Because, like, he's like, oh, I grew up without a dad. And, like, you know, what if I have kids? It's, like, the same way. To me, that's how I read it. But I see why. Was dozing off though, because like it was too relaxing.
Yeah, that
like
ASMR narration.
Because especially like after all this chaos and shit, you're kind of like tense, and then soothing music and nothing's really happening. It's just like nice bright colors.
Bedtime story.
Yeah, exactly. And then I was like, oh, I'm passing out. I was literally dozing off, but I watched everything because once the Jeeves shows up and starts blowing people up,
right?
And I started crying like of laughter. I was like. Back in the movie, I was tense again.
Right.
My heart rate's up. Like I was like, oh shit. Anyway, I don't know. I just like this stupid world. This fucked up world.
Speaking of stupid and fucked up, we're dancing around a big issue. There was some nut busting in this movie, and I'm wondering, Dylan.
Yes.
Do you think those were Joaquin Phoenix's real balls?
I think he legit came inside of Parker Posey.
No,
and then she died.
This is like a central piece of the film. Again, he's sort of been living in fear that as soon as he ejaculates in a woman, he's gonna die because that's what happened to his dad. Because that's what his mom told him. Just a way to communicate how just completely fucked his relationship is with his mom and how bad his mom messed him up, right? And then when he does come, he doesn't die, but the girl dies, and
for no reason.
There is no repercussions for this. No follow up. The end. That's a full statement of what happens.
I thought it was like because it was an absurdist movie. I was like, oh, maybe that's like some kind of fembot,
right? Right.
Just like the mom turned off, to fuck with him.
I mean, it's telling that you could like stop this movie at any point. Anything could happen. Like they did such a good job putting you at unease in the film that like you can't grip to any kind of structure. I think that's also part of what that forest scene is like. Here's the story of Beau in a comfy 3-act structure that follows the hero's journey and all that as just a brief like 15 minutes in the movie. But in reality, it's just so free flowing and antagonistic towards any kind of structure to where, there's nothing that could have happened in that movie that would have surprised me really. And there are about 5 places where I was like, okay, it's ending here. That's fucked up. Oh, it's not ending here. Okay, it's going to keep going. And the other elephant in the room, aside from Joaquin Phoenix's big old nuts, is the runtime, right? 3 hours long.
I heard there was a cut before that. It was almost 4.
Yeah. Oh, fuck. I'm there for it. Bring it back in the theaters. I will buy physical media for the first time in a while to get a 4-hour cut of this. I think you need to going back to my point of there being A, the world is insane. B, there are useless, hopeless people who are that. And that is it. They have no arc. I think you really needed to show him in all these different situations. Like you see him in an urban setting and it's hell for him. You see him in a suburban setting, which is somehow even more nightmarish. And that's what I love is that you just see like that somehow literal boomers, not the colloquial boomers, but actual boomers have been able to like make a success and structure out of this chaotic world. And then, you go to the city and you just see people, what are their lives? They're dancing in the streets all day, or there are like glimpses into, I guess what you call control group types, right? Like you see the shopkeeper who's just doing his job pretty straight, amidst complete insanity on the streets. And you see Nathan Lane as a doctor and his wife as a CEO person, so like you see that you can have a life in this world, but it's all nightmarish. And the wood people are kind of like the idea of bohemians or rural types. He's in the country. That's a nightmare. Goes back home to where he's from, of utter affluence. That's a nightmare. Everywhere he goes is just a horror zone. And I think the runtime, as bonkers as it sounds, is kind of necessary to show him in all these situations. And again, if you were writing a conventional movie or just wanted to have a satisfying story, it'd be like, and then he found the place he belonged and he was happy. But it never happens. And I fucking love the movie for that.
I guess I would be curious to know what was in that other cut content.
Yeah.
Did it tie that animated sequence together?
Right.
Or what did he care less about than that part? You know, that's why I think that was just like his baby and he needed it to be in the movie. And so he didn't cut it because I think it could have been cut. I would like to know what he thought was less important. So that ended up on the cutting room floor.
Yeah.
The only part that I liked about that animated part, which again could have been at least shortened or something, was at the very end when he's like, "Oh, my boys," which took forever for him to be like, "Oh, my boys," it took like 10 minutes. But when he's like, "Oh, my sons," he says something about like how he would die, and they're like, "Well, then how did you have us?" And he's like, and then it ends.
Yeah.
You know? Like that's the good part of that part.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why I kind of like that it's just a pocket, within him watching the play. You do get new information out of it, and
new information in the animated part.
Yeah, he talks about how he talks about the nutting issue, his terminal nut, and like that's where you learn his ideas that he has about if he comes, he dies.
She says it like explicitly.
Yeah, but that's a flashback to when he was a kid, and she's telling him that as a kid, and you see him briefly bring it up on the
he tells the girl
on the cruise,
the Parker Posey character as a young person,
and that ties in, and he has her photo in the
they've already teased
the desk and but you get a little bit of new information.
It's information you're already told. It's totally fantasy. He doesn't like get swept away by a flood or something. Well, and the information that you do have that you can apply to the real world is elsewhere. That's all I'm saying, is that it's like it's extraneous.
It does look nice.
It looks great. I'm just saying it was a separate piece. Like that should have been bonus content.
I don't know. Maybe it's almost like a little bit of stylistic flexing, where it's just like, look, I showed you all this bonkers shit. Now you're in a cartoon and you're going to be fine with it. And guess what? Later on, there's going to be a giant penis monster. And the guy who died 10 minutes ago, he's just going to be back. No reason or content.
Just die again.
Yeah.
He died.
The PTSD Marine guy. He dies because
he falls on his gun. He starts shooting his chest.
Yeah.
That's right.
And then he comes back, which is the fucking awesome.
Also in an attic, which is in the second floor, but he just breaks through the window. And then his father, who's a giant dick monster. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe like that animated scene was like, I need people to get really comfortable with how weird this is going to be by the time. Maybe there's a ramping up that happens.
Like, for some reason, it really worked for me. I don't know. Justine, did you like the whole movie overall, or you weren't as enamored as Colin?
Yeah, okay. I mean, I think the first part was the strongest, where there's the weird city that he's living in. Again, because it does such a good job of showing, not telling, and then I feel like it loses that steam. It is such a great scene to set up the craziness of this world when he's like, "What's going on?" There's a guy. They're telling him to jump, and then they have the phone on him, and then there's just the body of the man in the street, and it's all decayed and gross. And it's like, oh, nobody comes and picks up. Nobody cares about this stuff. And then you see just everyone just running around. It's like, okay, got it. you know that you're in this other reality, and
there's
it's
that
awful.
Line, witnesses describe the suspect as uncircumcised.
Uncircumcised white male.
Again, it's like, sure, you might be a broken person, but also the news is fucked up. It is like you should feel crazy if you're watching local news. That's kind of a rational reaction to the circumstances around you.
Yeah, I was thinking about that world kind of like Idiocracy.
Right.
Where you have like a straight man character in there where he's kind of your eyes on this crazy world. But there's so much like background stuff that establishes this weirdness that is not like, you don't have to shout it out or anything. It's just, like the ticker or something on the news, and just saying weird stuff. And there's posters of weird things in the city and in people's room, and there's funny graffiti and stuff. It does such a good job of showing you the absurdity and the terror of this place. And then the part where he's like convalescing in those people's house, it's like, all right, these are some weirdos. The stuff with the daughter, this is where it started like losing,
Right.
I don't know, losing the plot or something.
Sure.
I guess that was like just another commentary on young people.
Yeah,
or
yeah.
something. I was kind of like, okay, can they move this along?
Yeah.
Get him to the place he's trying to go. And maybe that's another reason that I was kind of put off by the woodland time, because it's like, can we get to something world building again? You lose me when you lose the world building, I think is the case.
Yeah, I do think that was what they call it, sight gags when stuff is in the background. That's a good call out because there's just visually rich.
Yeah, good job with that. And then the last part with his mom was just kind of like wrapping things up. I can accept that, although that kind of went a little long too. But Patty LuPone is kind of great, so
Yeah.
and her house is amazing, so I was okay spending some time there. Yeah, I don't know. Overall, I think it was good. I think it was very ambitious.
Yeah.
I think it did some things really well, but I also feel like it was also very late at night when we were watching
Right.
this, and I kind of, maybe in that situation especially, was like, you're kind of wasting my time. I think
Did you go into it knowing that it was 3 hours?
because Colin said so.
Yeah.
I
We
did.
saw this movie at 9:40 at night.
Oh my
So we
God.
got out at like 1 a.m., which is just psycho for any movie, really.
Yeah,
And I was trying to think of it like, well, wasn't Avatar like 3 hours?
it was.
So I was all, okay, if I sat through Avatar, I could do this.
Because you're so psyched up.
Well, we'll watch 2 movies back to back.
Yeah, but there's like an intermission, and at
Stretch
least
the
there's like
legs,
a
yeah.
different, like your brain is in a different
Sure,
place. It's like a
sure.
new world or something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's especially hard when after that woodland part, you're at hour 2. You're
Right.
done with hour 2, and
I was
you're
panicking
like,
a little.
there cannot be
Yeah.
another hour.
Yeah, there's at the end when like Richard Kind is the lawyer. I was like, I think he's taking it home. I don't see where they're gonna stick the landing, but I think he's taking it home. And sure enough, it's like, okay, there's credits all of a sudden. Great.
Oh, that was another Idiocracy moment where like the arena,
Right, the arena and the
Very
judge.
Truman. Yeah.
that part for sure. When he was riding the boat, I was like, oh, they're gonna reveal that it's
All under a
Truman Show
dome or
issue.
something.
Yeah. And also, well, his mom telling him, I rigged your whole life, basically,
Yeah, but again, that's something that's like, I don't know if she really did that, or if that's like
It's like a
he's
power
just-
move.
Yeah, well, or if he's really just like, you control everything, and I can't trust, that
Yeah.
you didn't have something to do with everybody I've ever met.
Dylan, if I asked you to recall your favorite memorable moment that had nothing to do with the plot, like something that happened on the side of the screen or something that just happened that doesn't drive forward the narrative, what's the first thing you think of?
Other than the actual city that he lives in,
Right.
when the Elaine starts showing him the dead body in the pool,
Yeah, okay.
and like, but
It's all hyped on it.
if you see it, I think from what I remember, they're trying to get him out, like the workers.
Yes.
And at some point they just give up. Like they put the thing on the ground. Like they just leave. It's my favorite part. 'Cause it's like, this world's just fucking stupid.
Colin, what's yours?
I don't know if this counts as background because it kind of is central to the movie in a sense, but like when due to a series of circumstances he's running down the street naked and has to flag down the cop and it's like
Stabbed.
I mean, I know it's kind of like it's not the most subtle way of saying it, but it's sort of like, look, like you see all these random crazy people and you think they're random crazy people, but it's like you might be a random crazy person too.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess he doesn't need to be naked. He doesn't need to be like that. But it's like it raises an interesting point.
I just like how in that scene too, the cop's talking to a prostitute
Yeah,
and he's like freaked out. He's
he
like,
actually needs help, and the cop's just like about to shoot him, and he's like doesn't know how to like not get shot by a cop.
yeah.
He is saved from getting shot by a cop by getting hit by a car.
Yeah.
Yes. Justine, did you have a moment that sticks out for you? Like the first thing that comes to mind?
The first thing that comes to mind is like what stands out to me is not, I know it's like, again, not like a peripheral thing, but it's when the girl is drinking the paint.
Right.
That was
wild.
image and like the idea of how that would seem in your mouth, like trying to drink that, and then she's all gross and dead on the ground after. That was a really cool part that I remember. But the paint, like real thick. You know?
Yeah. Oh, they do CPR on her to try to get it
Yeah.
out.
Oh, and then it's all over the mom's mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was pretty gross.
So for me, like the kind of like esoteric side quest that stuck out to me was when they were the mom was putting together a jigsaw puzzle of her dead son.
Oh Jesus, that was so good. Their worship of their dead war veteran. Yeah.
But what was funny is like at first I thought it was Pat Tillman, you know, like so I was like, oh my god, they got a puzzle of Pat Tillman. But then they go into the room, I realized, oh, it's their dead son.
Yeah.
That was pretty trippy. Craft wise, apparently Joaquin, in order to remember that his hand is bandaged in character and that he needs to act like it's bandaged, he put like a bunch of like sharp implements on there so that if he actually touched his hand on anything, it would stab his hand. And then for the wound in his side, he took like a bunch of paper clips, and kind of unwound them and then taped them to his side so he'd have to walk
kind of
because
uneven.
if he walks normal, it would go into his skin. So like he was psychopathic about this.
his body language, like the way he walked. I mean, I think he really. I don't know. I know I sound mean saying this, but like again, I see a lot of just lost souls in the world often, and like Joaquin studied some of them because he did such a good job conveying, even down to the clothes. I mean, just something that fit the character. Like everything about him just completely served this idea. And to go back to the idea of like honesty in filmmaking or storytelling, like the stuff about like the daughter being like young people bad, big city scary, these are really not cool ideas to like.
Is this a boomer movie?
I mean, I think a lot of things that people do to communicate, or a lot of things in communication that I see with people, it's really like if you could put the They Live goggles on, you would see it's just people saying like, please think I'm cool. Please like me, please like me. Like a lot of like what you wear, what you drive, how you talk, like causes you champion. Like there's so much that people do like in the real world where it's like, it's almost like you're just a collection of ideas to communicate that you're just an okay human being, And so I really love to see a movie not really be transgressive in like a shock value way, but just be like, yeah, I'm a fucking mess. Like the filmmaker Ari being like, I am uncomfortable around young people. They scare me. Homeless people scare me. This world scares me. I have insane mommy issues. And it's not necessarily like just because it's in the movie the guy feels it. But I think if you were more self-conscious or trying to portray like a cool filmmaker, you would not include stuff like being mean towards the younger generation or a lot of the depictions that are in there. But like he's just so open with that kind of stuff. And yeah, I really appreciated seeing that, even if it might be to his own detriment.
Well, this actually, I mean, you might have read about this, but this movie is his baby. This goes back to the beginning of his
it's
career.
Like a short, right?
Yeah, he did
Beau.
a short, and then he just sat on it for like 14 years, like trying to get it made. But he had to do all these other movies before he kind of got that trust of like, this long form narrative that's completely absurd.
And I have no relationship with his movies. I haven't seen any of them.
Either of them?
No, either of the big two.
I like Midsummer. I know a lot. That's like kind of a polarizing opinion. Some people really hate it. Some people really love it. Hereditary, I did not like at all. I don't know why. I should have, but I didn't. And then I think he did like a 2019 horror movie that I haven't seen. That's how they quote unquote tricked audiences into watching this.
Right.
It was supposed to be like an anniversary showing of that, and then they, which would be a weird anniversary, right? 3 years.
Right.
Yeah.
I saw Hereditary, but that's the only one I've seen, and it was fine. I mean, it's not my favorite movie.
Some people say it is their absolute favorite movie, and that trips me out. I get really weirded out by that.
It's weird, but okay. I also feel like it was one of those ones that was like early on in horror movies are like artistic.
They're smart.
Right.
So I think it really took off on that. And I also think that's just part of the that A24 vibe that kind of started.
Definitely led to this one being marketed as psychological horror comedy. Like it's just like you didn't have to say horror at all. But
as a person that watched both those movies like later, like outside of the theater,
Right.
like at a friend's house, I guess Hereditary I think is better, but I don't care. But like there's a short he did like 10 years ago called Something Strange with the Johnsons It's like a 30-minute movie or a short film. Kind of explains like how he looks at families and shit because it's a weird fucking short film. I'm not gonna explain it, but like I showed Colin last night.
Yes, he did.
And
Colin, I know why Dylan's not explaining it.
Yeah, Colin threw up.
On
a laptop.
Yeah,
is there Harmony Korine DNA in these movies?
Yeah.
there has to be. Yeah,
Definitely.
Did you feel the Jokerman DNA? Like when you were talking about Joaquin Phoenix kind of embodying the character.
Oh,
I was like, this feels pretty jokery.
damn, that's good to Joaquin Phoenix because I did not think of him as being the Jokerman.
I didn't either.
That's funny. I did. For
Yeah.
sure did. And I was like, well,
that colored
kinda,
your experience?
No, I just
Okay.
thought that as an actor, this probably was a good that probably was a good foundation for him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like
like-
an outsider loser.
Maybe
And-
dial this back a little.
yeah, and then kind of get more into the like the psychology behind it,
Right.
Instead of just being like a cartoon.
He almost got to play, you can almost say he played the straight man in this because it's other characters in the world around him that are going crazy.
Yeah, or just being sensitive to people. Because I was thinking about the Nathan Lane character, and it's like he's not bad.
Yeah.
Like he just doesn't get that other people would be, inconvenienced by things.
He's
and-
on his track. He needs to stay on his
and
track.
it makes
Yeah.
sense. He's gonna go save a life. How
Fucking
could you
awesome,
be
man.
like, I need
Absolutely.
to go to a funeral? It's like, well, I get it, but he's kind of doing you a favor, and so you have to wait.
I think Ari described this movie as showing the audience what it's like to be a loser. That's the
Well,
perspective he's coming
yeah.
from.
Yeah.
And I guess the Joker's a funny counterpoint because it's like there is no great revenge or like turnaround or arc. No, there's just people in life who are just shot as people and they don't find love in the end. They don't have a nice little bow wrapped up in the end of their story. And it's just they are and they're valid and maybe be nicer to them because they're going through something. And, I guess it's hard not to see a little bit of yourself in that. I see a lot of myself in that. That's probably why I'm very sympathetic towards it. And I don't know, in a weird way, maybe it makes people a little bit more compassionate, even though it's a very uncompassionate film. In my opinion, I think it's the most difficult thing in the world to do, to be useful to others. But there are still people who are not useful to others. And something in them will take over, I think. And it's rare to see a movie because it's so unpleasant to see. I mean, you kind of saw that in The Whale, right? This is not a person that can serve their world. It's not a person that can fit into this world. It's not a person that can be of use to their world. And you just have to accept that and just, not hold it against them, I guess.
That's well put, man. Yeah.
I like when they throw his lawyer off of the.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Fuck
that's another RE thing. Just like impalings from like falling
Yes.
and beheadings, I guess too.
Absolutely.
And it's so good with everyone just exiting the arena
Yeah.
silently.
Oh, I didn't get
Oh
to
my
experience. I was the
God.
only one, so I didn't get to see anybody's reaction.
No, I mean,
No,
like,
in the
in the
credits.
in the credits. Oh, I thought you were talking about the movie theater.
no. There was no real crowd
Yeah.
interaction.
Yeah, I think box office was like 2.7 mil, so it's probably spread out all over the country.
Right.
Yeah, my theater experience was there was a guy that just kept leaving.
I love that his group would not follow him to walk out of this.
Come on, doesn't this suck? And it's like, I don't know. I don't like it.
I don't know, it's kind of fucking crazy. He lived in a fucking super jail world. He lived in an Adult Swim cartoon.
I think this might be the longest we've ever talked about
Oh my
a movie.
God, yeah.
And that's kind
Wow.
of fitting, I guess. So Beau's afraid. Are we going to hide under the covers or are we going to go out into the horrifying world? I'll say I'll go face the world. I have a couple like upper echelon movies I've seen so far. I'm not going to try to paint this year as all a bummer, but man, I don't think I have felt like a spark of joy watching anything like I've felt watching this movie this year at least. So I enthusiastically recommend this film. I say go outside.
Yeah, watch this movie. I'm not as enamored with it, but it is well done. Like I said, ambitious, and you can tell a lot of care was put into it. And the acting is really good. It's absurd, of course, so don't expect, I don't know what, but everyone plays their roles really well. I like Parker Posey. She was in the remake of Lost in Space on
Okay.
Netflix. That's where I was like, when I first saw her, I was like, where do I know her from? Oh, Lost in Space. But yeah, she's good. I like it. It looks good. It is long. So I guess if you watch it in the theater, be prepared.
I'm going to fake my own death and then build a plaque that commemorates where my head was crushed in by a chandelier and leave the wood busted up. This is a tricky one. I can't give it a perfect score, but I can say that I feel it's objectively a feat in filmmaking. I had the same, or rather similar, feeling in my body and in my brain afterward as I did last year when I saw Everything Everywhere All at Once. I think this might have a similar arc over the course of the next 12 months or so, or I guess it'd be like 10 months, where you're not going to hear a lot right now, but as it hits streaming, everybody's going to say, whoa, did you see this Beau is Afraid movie? It's pretty wild. And I think come award season, you're going to see a lot of trophies handed out to this one. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to watch what happens within the next 10 months with this movie. Dylan?
I think this is this year's Whale. No.
You got a whale of a good time?
This is the Whale of 2023.
Whale meets Joker?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I did like this movie.
Hold on. I do want to see a movie with a big fat Joker in it, but that's all.
Dude,
Go on.
honestly, representation.
Hell yeah.
I would be represented.
Batman!
Would his minions also be big?
They're just juggalos.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, just regular juggalos?
Fair enough.
I guess that is a movie then.
Right.
There's like 3 of those movies.
Oh, yeah. Big money wrestlers, etc.
Yeah, Big Money Hustlers, Rustlers.
But Batman's not in it.
Yeah. No Batman.
No
I
threat
guess
of Arkham
I need the
Asylum.
Joker in the Batman world, and
Right.
he's a juggalo. Would be cool. I do like this film. I recommend. I guess I'm wild in the streets. I don't know. I'm running away from the bald, tatted man.
Try to get by at a little faster of a clip on these next two. Evil Dead Rise, newest entry into the Evil Dead franchise, written and directed by Lee Cronin. Couldn't find much else that he's done. A lot of TV stuff or smaller movies. It's Evil Dead in a high-rise apartment. Some kids unearth a demon, and it starts going through, and it's
in their mom.
Yeah. You seen it in a cabin? Now it's in a city.
You saw it in a cabin, but you also saw it in medieval times.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
So,
Fucking stupid.
yeah. What's everyone's relationship with Evil Dead, like the franchise, if you will?
I have seen at least half of the first or second one.
They're a little interchangeable. They're not if you know them, but like it's easy to confuse one with the other in terms of like what happens in which film. Mm-hmm. 2 is kind of an yassified version of 1, a little bit upscaled, but still basically the same premise with the same actors doing the same thing.
Yeah, so I don't know which one I have seen or not. And then again, probably half of whatever the medieval one is.
Yeah.
I only recently read that there's like a bunch of different books or like a few different books.
Oh, the Books of the Dead?
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, well, I guess I could just do this forever and just keep saying there's another book or something. But yeah, I'm not like a fan. So
You didn't, of what you've seen of the 80s movies? You don't have any feelings on them?
Not really.
It's just whatever, huh?
Yeah, I kind of, I guess that comedy doesn't really work for me.
Camp.
Yeah, there we go. A little too campy.
Okay, Brent, what's your history with the Evil Dead?
Well, early 2000s, I was in a horror themed grind band.
Okay,
and the guitar player was absolutely obsessed with Evil Dead movies.
Right.
And I had not seen them at that point, and I thought it'd be hilarious if I never watched them because he was just constantly talking about them out of context. We'd be like at like a rest stop, be like, "Hey, what do you want to eat?" So, anyways, then Ash would go in, and right. Okay, but what do you want to eat?
So you're 0 for 5 on.
Well, no, I mean, I've seen portions of them because like, when you're in a horror-themed grind band, everywhere you stay with other people, they're like, "Hey, you want to watch Evil Dead?"
Yeah,
they put it on. It's kind of like there's movies that you see in chunks over the years.
Yeah.
I think I've probably seen the first 2 like in their entirety, just not in proper order.
Heavy Metal Dylan?
Yes.
Thrashing Dylan?
Yeah.
What's your
Death Metal Dylan?
Ooh.
Are you death metal now?
Death Dylan?
Dead by Dawn Dylan?
Deathlin? What's my relationship?
Yeah, what's your history with them? What have you seen so far? We're in the latest installment.
I've seen everything but the Ash versus Evil Dead show.
Okay.
I grew up buying those stupid DVDs,
Right.
just watching it. Like I had the Book of the Dead DVD. I don't know where it's at. It's probably rotting. But like,
that rubbery
yeah,
cover,
yeah. And I just would watch it, and I was like, yeah, this is cool, because I was just like going to the fucking thrash shows over here, and then like going home, putting it on, thinking it's funny. But I don't know. I like those movies.
Yeah, I loved those, the Evil Dead 2 especially, but the first two Evil Deads I was like obsessed with growing up. I was to the point where like Army of Darkness, I'd be like, no, that's a sellout. Like I won't mess with that.
That's the silly one.
Yeah, bullshit. I want to see the real
I
stuff.
heard that opinion a lot in those years.
I've matured since then and could totally appreciate it. I love it, but it is definitely like different. But I don't know. I really like those movies, and specifically like Sam Raimi's approach to it, like the level of auteurship, because they have like grown with me. Like I get older and I appreciate different things about them, and like everything that I appreciate about them has made me not ever want to care about the remake or Ash versus Evil Dead. Like I want Bruce Campbell to just do great in life, just seems like such a swell person and has been entertaining me for a long time. So like I want him to have a vehicle to fulfill himself with, but it's not, I just kind of don't care about it as a franchise, if that makes sense.
And the newer movies, they don't keep the same tone, right? Like this one is very outside of that tone. So I think the things that people really like and expect from those movies is totally thrown out the window. Like I know the movies well enough, this in the same way that I know Scream, even though I've not watched them. Like,
right.
They're just baked into the culture. You know? So like there's a chainsaw.
Sure,
there's
chainsaw
that
hand.
weird GoPro scene.
Yeah, everything coming at you FPS
where
style.
it's like on her face, like moving around. You get to have those things, but it doesn't have that fun quality to it.
I mean, I guess when I think about now, if you give a sixth grader Evil Dead, like it's over for him. Like that's a sixth grade boy, especially like middle school boys are like, those movies are built for them. Cause and I don't know, maybe a newer generation that's like raised around internet with free access. Like who the hell knows what they've seen, but when you're young, you see like, it's everything you want. It's just pure it. It's a little bit Saturday morning cartoon. It's a little bit Disney. It's a lot of it just shock, and they're not the goriest movies or like the most like mean-spirited movies. I kind of feel like that's why you would like them a little more, Justine, because it's not like, oh, the last girl in this movie and the shower scene and the dismemberment scene and I feel like the 14th movie, they actually went a good direction. They brought back a lot of the practical effects of it's just like a guy who doesn't really have a big budget to make a movie with in the woods, just being like, what's the weirdest shit I could do on a shoestring budget?
What I like, I would like the medieval one way better. Yeah,
and that's him with some budget and like some ins with Hollywood.
Sillier, like
is.
And so I like that one better.
I love that one now. Again, when I'm like, we have weird puberty energy, it's hard to be like, oh, it's so funny. It's just, but you want to see people getting abused by trees and all the stop motion and stuff in those movies. Like cool. That's the stuff I love. Just this nature of like auteurship and just like, what can I put together? How can I have a voice in cinema? And of course, seeing what Sam Raimi has gone on to do is amazing. The fact that he has Drag Me to Hell to his name after the fact, which I feel like that's just him showing like, hey, I could still make these movies if I want. Don't be fooled by the rocks that I got, the rocks being the Spider-Man trilogy. Yeah. I'm still Sam Raimi from The Block being the
I'll show a girl get barfed on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So it's like, I don't know. I love Sam Raimi, and taking him out of the equation, I just haven't cared about any of that stuff, and even just retrofitting it to a TV show. I know people love these things, and there's like, people there for it, but this is all to kind of say that I don't think I am that. Like I love the originals, and I don't know, everything that I loved about the original movies is not present in this film. Yeah. So I guess we should start talking about this film now, right?
Yeah, right. Let's make it short. Let's talk about the original Sam Raimi Evil Dead movies.
So, I don't know. This just seemed very much like any old people being possessed by any old demons, and they just put like in Fortnite when you can just make yourself be a Thanos or like a Five Nights at Freddy's character. Like it just has like a skin of an Evil Dead on it, like certain catchphrases. I guess there's some attention to practical effects, which is
Oh yeah.
you would call a staple of the original, but I wouldn't call them particularly like endearing. It's all dark. Didn't move the dial much. I really tried to just look at it objectively. It's like, hey, it's just a horror movie. You need horror movies, and it's super effective, right? And I'll start with praise and say like, what really worked for me about the movie is like how well they conveyed like the death scenes to people, like anything involving bodily harm or like, you know, skin being torn at or hair being pulled, like the way it's shot is like, it gives you the heebie-jeebies.
Cheese grater.
Yes.
Yeah.
Whole audience.
The tattoo needle.
Pissed
Me
Brutal.
off.
You saw it? You saw it with people, Dylan?
Yeah.
Was
like
there
people with my friends or people in the theater?
both?
Yeah.
And did that stuff like shock?
I think it led a couple to leave because they left like in the center of the movie.
I can see that. Yeah, it was pretty extreme.
'Cause I was like, I think it happened when the daughter first gets possessed. Like after she eats the glass, they left. Like they both just ran out. Like fuck this, I'm out.
Wow.
I was like, damn, they got grossed out by that. They never watched an Evil Dead movie or what? That's crazy.
We had a couple that walked out too.
Really?
Yeah.
I will say, like my friends reacted to shit like that, but they, you know, they're not leaving because they're fans of horror,
Right.
And everyone else, like there was a guy behind me, solo man, like in his 50s, and I was like, I don't mind, I don't really care. He's like right behind me, but like shit like that, he's like,
Ooh, dark.
and I was like, man, this guy's cool.
Yeah.
By himself, middle of the day on a Saturday,
Oh my
like 2
God.
o'clock.
Was it crowded for you?
Yeah, it was a little crowded.
Yeah.
I think the other issue I have is kind of with like performances because Bruce Campbell just was like such a huge part of what makes those the first three work.
Mm-hmm.
And like again, I just want to look at this movie as like, look, you need to have the Evil Dead Fortnite skin to get into the theaters, right? You need to have the fans to go see it, and there just needs to be movies that are like visceral and gross out and gnarly for people to see, and this is that, and there's like hardworking people behind it. Don't take your childhood memories and shit on everything they're doing just because, you know, it doesn't match up with like your memories of coming home and watching TV at night, you know, whatever. I don't know. I truly try to be fair to it, but it's hard to think of why it's called an Evil Dead movie when there's not like there's no Ash, you know, there's no big, I don't know. I felt like all the performances were kind of interchangeable and sort of.
Yeah. You know what's messed up is I keep forgetting that there was the girl who I assume is the protagonist, the Ash in the movie.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Forget about her every time.
Yes.
Like when I think about this movie, I'm like, oh yeah, the possessed mom and the daughter with the short hair. And then I forget about I forget about the main girl entirely. She's forgettable, which is too bad.
Yeah. Especially in a franchise where I don't know. I'm not mad at this movie. It's fine. I'd be lying if I said I loved it or liked it very much.
Yeah, I think it sums it up a bit. But when we walked out, first thing I said to you was, "Man, great sound design."
Yeah.
That was good. Like a lot of behind you sounds.
Right. Right. True.
I think I was just mainly just happy that there was a movie that had decent phonograph representation,
Right.
And they acknowledged the speed issue of something that would have been recorded in the 30s. It would have been cut at like 78.
Yeah.
So naturally, you got to put your finger on it and speed it up, which they did. There's a little warble at first, which was nice.
And then they just got rid of it.
Then they just like,
For the
this is
sake
too
of
much.
communication.
This is due. This movie's due next week. Shit. All right, just run it.
After having seen The Pope's Exorcist,
Yeah.
I also was thinking this doesn't have to be an Evil Dead movie because they show like a tomb or something, like a vault that's cracked open, and the tomb that's cracked, there's a hole, and that's why he's able to reach inside and take the book. All they would have had to show was that the tomb was cracked, like in Pope's Exorcist, and it's like, well, the thing got out, and now it's possessing the people in the building. You didn't need to have a book.
Right.
Yeah, we really did just watch two movies that have the same thing.
And that's what I thought was happening because I wasn't thinking of it like an Evil Dead movie because I don't have that relationship with it. I was just like, and because I haven't seen the stuff in between, I was like, well, who knows what it's like now. So I was like, okay, there's a spirit and they caught it and now it's got out because it got cracked because there was an earthquake.
Sure.
You know, that would have been fine. But yeah, this doesn't have to be this movie. I can see that they got a lot more money to do all the stuff because of that. And so I think that was good for them. But, you know, ultimately the story wasn't polished as the effects were.
And just to go back to Pope's Exorcist, because that's just the last horror movie I saw in the theater, like Russell Crowe delivered a performance. That kid that got possessed by the demon delivered a performance. Like there was
standouts.
Yeah, for sure. Or just a little bit of character, you know? I think this one didn't really have even that. And Pope's Exorcist is not like, I mean, I liked that movie. I would even say quite a bit, but it's not like a upper echelon, top notch, like, oh man, this rewrote the books of horror, you know? And it's still, to me, it's if you have to choose between that and this new Evil Dead movie, I would choose that.
Unless you're just in it for like gross out stuff.
Yeah, I guess.
Is Evil Dead more gross out?
Yeah, but in terms of like fluids and, you know.
Yeah, there's violence and there's gross stuff in this, which there's not in Pope's Exorcist.
There's some stuff, but it's not to this effect.
Yeah, there's like blood.
Yeah.
You know?
Are you as middle of the road as we are on this one, Dylan?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Like, I don't know. Like, I agree with you to a really high extent with the Evil Dead is Ash. Because I remember liking the 2013, but again, it's more like a cabin in the woods.
Right.
And then it's like they're just rehashing scenes from the first. But it's not like a reboot because I think it takes place in 2013, if I remember correctly. And there was a lot of blood. This one, I don't know. When I watch these type of movies, I want like, and they gave it to me, like the pain,
right,
the blood, violence.
Right.
And not to swing it back to Beau is Afraid, but I got that from Beau is Afraid. And I watched Beau is Afraid like right after.
Right.
Like, I was like, oh yeah, like the first hour is like, oh, crazy shit. But I think as I mature, I just wanted to be set in real life situation.
Right.
But Evil Dead, I don't know. Like, I like the title screen a lot.
That was badass,
right?
dude.
Sure.
Oh,
yeah, that was it. I mean, I'm not saying that that's the fucking highlight of the film.
No, that shit rocked. I thought the movie was gonna be awesome after that. I was like, they're doing this for the title screen. Let's go.
And I knew it was gonna be in a fucking like a haunted mansion or the Tower of Terror. But like, you know, it's benefits more from being Evil Dead, obviously.
Yeah, financially or for pragmatic purposes.
Yes.
But in terms of art purposes,
you could legit call it Tower of Terror.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh fuck, this is scary.
Damn, good point.
I have a question for you though.
Oh, for me?
Yes.
For me?
And I never ask.
I know. I love to hear this. I'm so excited right now.
How much do you think those LPs cost on Discogs?
Those
LPs that he plays.
The preacher acetates.
Yeah, the Book of the
Those
Dead
wouldn't
tapes.
be. You wouldn't. So to put an entry on Discogs, you need to have the record.
Yes.
Take a photograph of the record, which that kid didn't do. They've been locked in a basement since a little bit before Discogs existed. Yeah. So they wouldn't have had the opportunity to make the entry. Yeah, and it's a one of a kind acetate. It wouldn't work.
But if let's say the kid never plays it, and he just posts on Discogs. Rare.
So he'd have to make the entry, and then he would have to get the following. So you would go eBay for that route. Bottom line,
yeah, and you'd sell it to Rollins.
And because you're a dipshit fucking kid, you wouldn't know how to pack the thing right because acetates are way more fragile than regular LPs. Yep. So you'd put it in the same mailer that you used to receive that Stone's Throw record that was on the turntable at one point. Shout out to Stone's Throw. And you would send it to him normally, and it would crack on the way because you sent it fucking media mail too to save money on the.
Would you think you would send it out with the Book of the Dead?
No, that's a different.
It's not a box set, Dylan.
Yeah, that's
I know,
a different
but you think
one.
he'd be like, comes with book?
Nah.
He never opened the book. He just wanted money purely. Because he did say, like,
it looks like
probably
it's
worth some money.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's
I feel
why
like
he
you would
stole
take the book to like a Gremlins like shop, and then you put the acetate on Discogs because you're just dumb about it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
How much do you think though?
Like $20.
That was cool.
Evil Dead Rise. Are we opening the book of the Necronomicon that we're not calling the Necronomicon anymore? I assume to distance ourselves from H.P. Lovecraft and his problematic views. Are we saying Klaatu Barada Nikto to summon the demons? Or are we just going to live it be and maybe sell it on Discogs? I'm going to say it's fine. You can watch this movie. I'm not mad at it. It's just you got to be a real lover of horror. And I don't know, really need more of the franchise, I guess. It's fine. It's a fine movie.
I probably open a lot of these books and then just kind of flip the pages a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, did I read that? I don't remember. That's kind of this movie. I mean, there's maybe parts where you remember, like the cheese grater. disassociating it from Evil Dead, I think would have been totally fine. There's like these horror movies come out like once a month now,
Right.
and they're well attended. I don't think they needed to have the name. I think because they had it, they had to throw in those callbacks. And so maybe people that like the movies would appreciate that. But I also feel, again, like the tone is so off that it probably doesn't appeal to those people as much. So I don't know. It's probably evening out that it has the Evil Dead name. It is a possession movie. You do get the contorted body and the
Right.
crawling on the ceiling. Check.
I have to get in this point that I'm not sure if it's a stupid point or if it's kind of like the cornerstone of my whole argument, or just embodies like my whole issue with the unnecessary franchisation of this series. At one point, the demon's like, "Dead by dawn, you'll be dead by dawn," because they said that in the first movie. But in the first movie, Ash has to survive until the sun comes up, and he essentially defeats the demons by waiting until dawn. They're like, "You'll be dead before the sun rises," and he says, "No, I'm going to survive until the sun rises, and I'll be saved because the sun will rise." And that's how this whole thing works. This time they say, "Dead by dawn, you'll be dead by dawn," because they said that in the other movie. The dawn plays no role in defeating the demons. Why are they saying?
Yeah, the sun doesn't
Pop
matter.
fans, that's it.
Again, and that's kind of everything I'm saying here. It's like, instead of the callbacks having relevance to anything, it's just saying it because it was said in the other movie. I'm really surprised we didn't see a chainsaw arm and her say groovy at some point. It's Brent.
I'm going to go 3 stars for the movie and then 5 stars for the mental image of baby Dylan running around the house with a rubberized Book of the Dead, getting stoked.
I wasn't a baby. I was like in the 7th
Little
grade.
baby
Again, what I
Dylan.
tell you, middle school is the perfect time to get hit by these
Yeah.
fucking movies.
Yeah. Klaatu, Barata.
Oh, you said it right.
Oh. Yeah, I liked it. I do like that lady's face. I'll say that. The demon lady, like the way she looked, not like the fucking. I'm not like she's so fucking beautiful. I'm saying like I like the way she looked. And I'm not saying she's ugly either. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no,
she
she
is
looks
a
all
very
crazy.
good-looking woman. I'm sorry. She is a good-looking woman, but I do like her look in the film.
Right.
I can't really sit here and say none of them did a bad job. I did like the teen guy for some reason, and the girl. Anyway, watch it. It's really fun. It's a fun haunted house movie, and like Colin's favorite part of the film is when they're like quoting stuff like "Dead by dawn, dead by dawn."
He was so stoked. It was crazy.
I was there. Colin was stoked.
Tears.
Yeah.
Tears.
Hands up,
Yes.
stoked, head banging.
Chevalier is a biopic of Justine
Joseph Cologne.
Oh.
Bologna.
Sorry.
the Chevalier. This is a biography of a gentleman who lived around the time of the French Revolution. He was sort of a prodigy who was just like amazing at fencing, which kind of got him the important part, I guess, is that, or like the kind of reason that this makes it so crazy is he was his dad owned a plantation. His mom was a slave on the plantation. So he's, a black person in the 1700s in France who is just climbing the echelons of the aristocracy through his abilities as a fencer and then as a composer. And he just was this kind of Renaissance man who...
Good at everything.
Yeah. And I had never heard of him before this movie, and I think that's why this movie exists. I kind of got the feeling of like in tone and in terms of like what it accomplishes, kind of like a movie they would play in class in high school. Here's a story about a person who existed, who, of course, because of his race, got kind of written out of history, hence, you didn't really learn about him in your history classes and whatnot. And I would say high school specifically, because I'd say it has somewhat of a YA tone.
Yeah, a little.
Like you have swashbuckling stuff for boys and you have like romance stuff for girls, just to keep in real simple, like high school things. I could see you putting this movie on and engaging a classroom and also teaching them stuff, and teaching them about a figure in history. I think based on the trailer, I was expecting a lot more violin battles.
Yeah.
They give you some violin
There's
battles.
definitely violin battling.
More violin battles than you'll see in Evil Dead, in Beau is Afraid, in a lot of movies in the theater right now. I dare say any movie in the theater right now, there's more violin battles, but it's a much smaller part of the movie
than you expected.
Right. Justine, why were you so excited about this movie?
I just like historical people and French stuff and Revolution era stuff and composers and that people called him like Black Mozart, but that's kind of derivative of
Right.
like how much stuff he was good at and how like hard it would have been for someone
Of course.
to do all that stuff. So like how amazing must he have been? Unsung hero stuff, I like that. So I was excited about it, and I like this weird Amadeus core
Yeah.
stuff that's coming up. I'm way into it. I've been looking forward to this movie for a long time, and I was mad when it was delayed.
Right.
And so it's finally out.
But how did you feel once you saw it?
I felt fine.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, I had no real problem with it. I am always kind of a grouch about like too much time spent on romance stuff,
Right.
Especially because he did so much cool stuff
True.
that they kind of I feel like wasted time with that. But I also get that it's a movie that's supposed to appeal to like a lot of people, and that I think also if you're setting a movie in this time period, you have to lean into that.
Right. You can't have this ladies running around in super
Giant
pretty dresses and stuff
and not talk about it.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I get it. So at least it was made, but I did feel a little bit like I wish they had told more of the interesting parts of the story.
I liked the movie, I think, because it's just so functional. Like, it does convey this idea. I mean, I always looked up the guy's Wikipedia, kind of like fact check the movie, like I'd have a gotcha moment. It was like, oh, wait, no, he saw that lady, and then that guy was mad at him. And it's so crazy, too, like reading. I mean, this is whatever. Can't get more amateur historian than like my interest in history, which is basically nothing. I don't usually look into this stuff, but it's like because in the movie like fights some guys on the streets, because he like has an affair with this lady who's married to a guy in the French
armed
military.
guy,
And he gets attacked in the street, and the only reason we know about it is because some other guy was writing about it. Like, oh, this crazy thing happened to that mulatto composer. You're not going to believe this. Like,
Did you hear about this?
So again, it's kind of a forgotten history. So it's pieced together through all these crazy things. So it got me looking at the Wikipedia, and I think I'm interested in what kind of makes something feel like cinematic, and I think a lot of the attention to like the backgrounds and the costumes grounded me in the time pretty well. So it didn't feel like a made for TV movie or anything. It felt like a movie, oddly enough, for being a movie. And I think what pushed it over into like really made me be like, okay, this isn't just them talking about a figure. It's not bland. I think they really got into the idea of Black excellence as a myth, and there's a lot of discourse around that right now. And they use the word excellent specifically, like a lot in the movie. They're like, you're an excellent Frenchman can never be put down. So it's sort of, all I could think about is that Jay-Z song Story of OJ. It's based around the OJ quote. I'm not black, I'm OJ, which is sort of like the entry point to that myth of Black excellence. That, if you're good enough, you're not going to be one of these people. So I kind of felt like that was the Trojan horse, like the historical fiction and the romance and the fights. That's what we're using to get this in. But underneath that, there will be some idea of like intersectionality of race and class and where you belong and where you think you belong and all of the ways that they made it light. Like I thought one of the funniest things is mom, who's a slave, speaks Creole. She comes back into the house and she's speaking Creole with the servants. He's like, we speak French here, but he's saying it in English. And it's like, that's just, they know that they're making something palatable. And for sure, like if you were to try to make a more adult, mature movie, it would be 3 hours long. It would be Emily. It would be in French with subtitles, and it would be more immersive. And maybe I would like it more, or it would speak more to me, but I don't think it would effectively get people to do what I did, which is look up the Wikipedia entry and the crazy Wikipedia. Can't recommend the Wikipedia entry on this guy enough. And also I think having that simple stylistic choices was able to talk about this bigger issue, which is obviously still super relevant today, and without it coming off as preachy or obvious or anything like that. So I don't know. It just, I think from a craft level, checked a lot of boxes. So yeah, if I'm in high school watching this on the TV that they roll in, which I'm picturing still exists, I'm still going to doodle some like metal band logos on my notebook and everything, but I'll watch it secretly. I won't admit that I like it, but I'll watch it.
I'm hoping that making it palatable enough would have people open to watching it, and that they wouldn't be too put off by like, oh, it's just a race thing, because
Right.
it does tackle like the issue of Black excellence, but it also should just show people like you can be the best, but as soon as it's inconvenient for somebody, they will pick whatever is like the thing that they see as making you most other than them, and they'll use it against you. Like
Right.
you could be like super rich or something, but then your peers, once they don't like you, are like, oh, you don't have a legacy family name or something
Yeah.
stupid, like any little thing. And so I think that that's a takeaway that everybody could take from this. But obviously the big issue here is with his race, and at that time, which is, again, super crazy.
I don't mean to make this the Justine and Colin show, but I think that's what really, something else I noticed really liking about it is that, if you were to write this guy as this like ultra cool, like perfect figure, like as soon as he got money, he would be trying to free the slaves and bring everyone up and end these systems, but since he's benefiting from it, he's kind of a shitty character. Like he's not this perfect person that you would want through modern lenses to see him as.
Yeah, he's not like you're writing a hero.
Yeah.
He legitimately, was in that world. He was an excellent Frenchman.
Right.
He had no reason other than his race to believe that they would not accept him for the amazing things that he was able to do. So, when people were like turning their backs on him, it was like, how could they do that?
Right.
For him? And when people are still telling you, oh, you're so awesome, you're so great, why would you think anything but that?
Yeah.
So yeah, he wasn't involved in he didn't really know about this like subculture of
Right.
these freed slaves or whatever, because that wasn't his world.
Yeah.
He just was what he was until they decided he wasn't.
I like that they could show him as kind of a, not someone who's just likable on every level.
Yeah.
A Mary Sue, if you will.
There you go.
Yeah, Chevalier is no Mary Sue. You heard it here first.
It's like he's an actual man.
Yeah, it's like he had a life. I was living in these really oppressive systems, and I wasn't particularly interested in ending him because he was doing okay.
Yeah.
I'll say it. Ballone's a fucking clown. If you like the energy of Kanye West in 2022, or if you like Samuel L. Jackson and Django Unchained, nothing likable about this guy in any capacity. The only way he gets in touch with like his Black heritage is when he's rejected by white society because he craves the approval of white society so deep and so desperately. I think he is a shitty character as a human being. Obviously talented, but I think this movie did a good job portraying a person that has nowhere else to turn, and only then does he turn to his roots.
Nowhere else to turn in what way?
Because he thought he was part of like this certain class. He sought approval of white people like Kanye in 2022, and when they didn't give it to him, only then was he like, "Oh look, I can go on the streets and play drums."
Like I was saying, he's not seeking approval of white people. This is his world. He grew up there.
And it wasn't white people, it was like the aristocracy.
Class.
Which is like,
you could replace white with class.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
so he was in that class. He was living in a palace, like, and again, like I was saying, he didn't have a connection to that community because he had no connection to that community. It wasn't
at no point did he seek the connection to that
because
community.
he was busy playing music and being the head composer at like
Right.
a royal
Yeah,
palace.
I got a more militant take on that.
I
that
don't
kind
think
of
it's the same to like, I don't think you can apply seeking approval when like you're literally handed down a title from Marie Antoinette. That's a little different than like,
No, he kept chasing clout. He kept like, look at how he introduced himself to people. Fucking clout chaser.
Yeah, well,
star
it's-
fucker.
but it's a different society. And I think that's kind of part of the movie's goal is to show like, how not much has changed, and B, just how rigid that society was and how just unheard of his accomplishments were to get into it. So it's not like he was scratching at the door. They were like, oh, please come in. But it's also like to other people who have been welcome in, I guess more appropriate would be maybe like a Get Out or something where it's like, yeah, you can get welcomed in, but you're still in this hierarchy. I think like the message of the film, of course, is like that those hierarchies should be dismantled. And that's another craft thing they do really well is like, I'm not like a history guy or anything, but French Revolution, guillotines, let them eat cake, just pop culture kind of history. And it's like, you see lower class is upset a little bit in the beginning of the film, and it rises and rises. And by the end, it's like, it's on.
See the mobs.
Yeah, that's that's something they left out of the movie that is kind of, I don't know about funny, but like, he did like go to jail.
Yeah, because he was one of the, in that sphere of influence of like the royalty and the court and stuff. So,
Yeah.
But this was like, he had already kind of been, shunned. But it became like, oh, he deserves this position, but some people don't like it. So I guess we can't give it to him. And that's when he's like, all right. So it doesn't matter if you're great at everything. They're still going to treat you bad.
There's a glass ceiling in place.
Yeah.
You think he had the opportunity to work with the queen when she came to his quarters before, as he was about to unveil his revolutionary piece?
Well, it was too late at that point. He was like, well, if this really has nothing to do with merit, that kind of system can't last. So by that time, I don't think he would have bothered trying to say that he wasn't going to do it. It was like, you don't respect people, Like
there's a part of me that would hope that he would try to appeal to her.
Well, it wouldn't matter much. She got her head chopped off. Like.
Well, I'm saying like help her see what's going on in the streets, because it seemed like he finally was able to see what was going on in the streets, definitely sooner than she was.
He did yell at her at that party where he's like, you think you're a queen, like your people are dying out there and your people are starving. And she's like, no. So
she probably wouldn't have had it.
No, you saw her where she was like, there's nothing I can do. I still have to be a queen. So it's like, if she really was trying to help people, she would be like, she would have already been more receptive to it. And this probably should have been a catalyst for her kind of thinking more about the people.
Right.
If her best friend, or whatever. They're not best friends, but
they're pretty close,
Yeah, they're depicted as being like really close, and then she knows that he deserves it, and then she's all, sorry, can't do it. And he's like, but we're friends, and she's like, yeah, I know. Sorry.
That's kind of why he did time. They would like jam out together. I thought that was so cool. They were like, oh, he's according to fucking Wikipedia, huge emphasis there. But she was like, yeah, just play for me and my friends. And you're like, okay. And then she would like jam with him on the keys. How insane is that to think of Marie Antoinette playing piano and Chevalier playing the violin together?
That's a jam session.
Sick jam sesh, bro. But yeah, because they were so tight. And this is all fresh to me, so I don't mean to like be, factoid blasting everyone here. But he tried to get in on the revolution, be like, I'll serve. And he served for a while. And they're like, wait a second, you were like best friends with this lady who were chopping the heads off of. He got out of jail and like changed his name and tried to join again. They're like, bro, no. Like,
wait, they put him in jail because of his affiliations with
Marie Antoinette. Yeah, because he was like, no, you're one of these guys. He's like, no, I'm cool. I want to fight for the revolution.
But he didn't die. Not then. Nope. Everybody else got beheaded.
Yeah, so I don't know. Even when you're like down to fight, you're like, yeah, okay, fuck this system. Let's go. They're like, no, stupid. You're like best friends with these people. We're not going to fight with you.
But they also were like,
but you are fucking good.
Fine. Yeah. So we won't kill you, but we're mad at you still.
Dylan, what do you like? What do you think about it? You've been quiet.
Oh, fine. I also thought it was a violin movie.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was based on a real person. I thought it was just like, again, trailer did nothing. Like,
no.
It told me what setting it'd be based in.
Right.
But nothing about like the actual plot, I guess. But I guess you'd have to be in the know. But I liked the film. Like, I didn't really think, period.
Yeah. Just watch it.
And I was like, nice. That's literally how I looked at it. I saw the message, but
I did like hearing like the violins and all that stuff on like a big theater screen. It did make me, like, again, just selfishly, because there's a big story to tell, but I was just like, I just want to hear more violin battles. I want to hear more music stuff. But, again, got to give people street fights and pretty dresses and stuff. Chevalier, are we awarding the title of Chevalier? I think, does that just mean knight?
Yes.
This is dark. This is, like his plantation that he was from was called, like, forgot the name. It's a French name.
Saint-Georges.
He was like, I am Chevalier Saint-Georges. So as a slave, imagine declaring yourself the knight of the place where you were a slave at. Such a complicated story to tell. And because of that, I will award the Chevalier to this film. There was some choices made, and I understand them all, and I think there was like a level of craft there that made it better than it needed to be. And it was all in service of these points that it was trying to make. So I was cool with it. Maybe not the most like run out to the theaters right now and see it. People are going crazy about Chevalier, but I've seen a lot worse biopics in my time. And it's nice to see a biopic about a musical figure who wasn't in Kiss or Kiss related.
Yeah, I'm thinking let him have the knighthood. He deserves it. But thinking about biopics, it's a weird thing to have it in this era, like of somebody that's actually historical.
Right.
Coming off of recent biopics that are just like about people you know about. You know, you're not really learning anything.
Hey, I'm Elton John. Look at me.
Yeah.
Wow, look at that rocket, man. Huh. That gives me an idea.
You know Freddie Mercury. Yeah, these people that you kind of know about already.
Right.
And then it's just sort of like, look at you get more of them that you already know about. It doesn't teach you anything, you know, it's just kind of like for whatever. And so when these happen that are palatable, that are about actual people, and you also learn things about like that time in history, I think it's neat. And again, yeah, the set, the costumes, everything like that, the music, it's nice to see.
Yeah, I don't know. The movie was definitely not for me. I'm glad that other people got enjoyment out of it, but yeah, just not for me.
I'll Chevalier him, knight him.
French
Knight
version
him.
of it.
Yeah, Chevalier.
Knight with a baguette. But in the beret on top of his head instead of the...
Yes.
Yeah.
With a twirly mustache.
I didn't see one beret or twirling.
Ooh, good point.
Ooh.
A very
You would
shortcoming
think
of
the
the film.
bad guy would look like Napoleon, huh?
You'd think they'd do some research if they're making a French movie
Yeah.
to give some more French bread and the
I didn't hear one accordion.
Yeah, the striped shirts.
All you have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to you.
Brent, you got a solo mission brewing. Tell us about it.
Indeed. Almost a year ago, I took screenshots of a movie that I didn't know how to pronounce. It was spelled Enys and then the word men, M-E-N.
Enys Men?
Yeah, Enys Men.
okay. I'm
Correct. You are correct. Yeah, it took me till last night to figure that out. So yeah, I was really anticipating this one. It wasn't showing at the local theater, so I had to do a little bit of driving to catch it, but that's fine. This film was directed by a gentleman by the name of Mark Jenkin, who came on the scene with a movie called Bait. A lot of people kind of noted his eye like behind the camera, and they thought he was really promising. So this one was written and directed by him. It's marketed as a wildlife volunteer on an uninhabited island off the British coast descends into a terrifying madness that challenges her grip on reality and pushes her into a living nightmare. The trailers and all the stills look like Wicker Man, which was basically it's one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah.
So it's set in 1973. I'm like, this is a movie for me. This has got to be a movie for me. So yeah, as soon as it was released, I was like, I got to go see it. It stars Mary Woodvine and at least a few other people with the last name Woodvine. That's kind of inconsequential, although she did put in a great performance.
Right.
I like this. When I about 20 minutes in, it felt to me like how I would hear people speak lovingly about Skinamarink. You know, they're kind of like, oh man, it's kind of a vibe. It's like atmospheric horror, you know. And I was like, okay, I think this is like when people use those words, this is what it looks like to me. But as it went on, it really started to flesh out. And I think this guy, Mark Jenkin, I think he's very good at visual metaphors. To the point where maybe this movie could have been 40 minutes instead of an hour and a half because he just kept drilling the same metaphors over and over. So it was really kind of surprising to me to see that a lot of people that have seen the movie describe it as vague or just plotless, or like, it's just, they describe it as just a vibe. And
I mean,
I'm
does
like,
it have a like hard plot that you could say?
yeah,
in a sentence?
I mean, what I read, you know, it's a woman who's like a volunteer wildlife preservationist, and she's just monitoring these flowers.
Okay.
And it's clear she's dealing with a lot of grief and a lot of trauma. I think what's happening is maybe the people that are watching it don't understand the role of lichen in nature.
Yeah.
You know, we get a good amount around here. There's a point in this movie where lichen really comes into focus, and I mean into focus. Like, he is zooming in on it, he's showing it, like, you know, gesticulating, and there's even parts where it begins to grow on scars on the woman herself.
Okay.
And if you look at the subtleties in those moments, and you look at like this woman who was clearly grieving and going through stuff, you start to see like little the corners of her mouth go up. She's a little more happy. She's healing. And what comes with grieving and healing, obviously, is you get setbacks. So there's ways that Jenkins shows this in the film. You know, like it's done through a lot of visual metaphors. Like, for instance, there's on a lot of the posters, there's like, you know, this giant rock on a hill, and this rock is viewable from her station on the island. And at one point, she looks out and the rock is gone. So she's like, "Oh, okay, the rock is gone." She closes the door. And then all of a sudden she opens the door and the rock is there. So it's like you need to face the rock in front of you, the difficult thing. See, that's what I mean when I say he's very heavy-handed with visual metaphors.
Guessing not very dialogue heavy?
No.
Gotcha.
No. There's a good amount of repetition in it, but that plays into the state of her well-being. You know, like when she's logging what's going on with these wildflowers, you know, for the first, I think like 8 days or so, she's monitoring the temperature and then writing whether there's any change in the flowers. So like for the first 8 entries, it just says no change.
Right.
But then after that is when things kind of things do change.
How pretty is this movie?
Man, I thought it, honestly, I almost texted you from the movie because I know like your affinity towards really beautiful, lush landscapes.
I like to look at meadows from inside an air-conditioned theater while eating Sour Punch
Sitting
straws.
Bro, I didn't even get to the best part. 3-4 ratio.
Ooh. Oh,
yeah, we
oh
talked
God.
Yeah.
Oh, the landscape is so open, but the setting is so claustrophobic. Oh, it's a perfect metaphor for being trapped in your mind with grief. Oh,
3-4. Yeah, I had to save that one for you. But sound wise, it's funny because in 2004 I had one of those MacBooks that had the first generation of GarageBand on it.
Yeah.
And they had all these like loops built into it. And if you go into the pad synth section, and I swear some of those loops found their way into the movie, which was weird because it gave me nostalgia for what
software.
It's software, but also it doesn't feel like a long time ago, but it's actually, you know, like almost 2 decades at this point. So yeah, it was an odd sensation to hear familiar sounds, but not from the 70s, like a 70s record or an 80s record. It's a tight hour and a half. I do think it could have been trimmed to 40. It doesn't matter though, because like, you know, if you're watching it to just kind of be in that world, it's fine. There are some quote unquote scary moments. It does get marketed as a psychological horror movie.
Sure,
it's not. It's I think it's more of a grief and healing.
Why do movies without a genre just have to go to horror?
I don't know. They're trying to like pack people in, maybe. I don't know.
I guess that does work. I mean,
just had to say weird.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Or it's like when you try to market a record, you'll be like for fans of.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know if this one is gonna get wide play. You know, I had to kind of hunt for it.
Is it a foreign film?
No.
Really?
No.
Homegrown in the USA?
No, I mean it's probably shot in the UK or something like that.
But...
You know what I mean? But yeah, I think Mark Jenkin is American.
All right.
Yeah.
A.I.M.D.B. I'm going to give you the plots as ripped from the headlines of the IMDb plot summary. 3 of them are real. 1 of them is AI generated. We're gonna go by genres. So all of these films that I'm going to mention are period pieces. Since we did a period piece. Should also note these are all from the 80s or 90s. I don't know why I picked that. I just figured that's where most of the movies we've seen are from. So again, 1 of these is AI generated. The rest are all real. You're first. A butler who sacrificed body and soul to service in the years leading up to World War II realizes too late how misguided his loyalty was to his lordly employer. Is it real or is it AI? Their second entry. An intellectually nonconformist friar investigates a series of mysterious deaths in an isolated abbey. C. A young and ambitious miner falls in love with a local saloon girl while struggling to strike it rich in a small town during a gold rush era. Or is the AI-generated plotline D. An impoverished woman who has been forced to choose between a privileged life with her wealthy aunt or her journalist lover befriends an American heiress. When she discovers the heiress is attracted to her own lover and is dying, she sees a chance to have both the privileged life she cannot give up and the lover she cannot live without. My question to you, movie masters, which is the AI-generated plot? There is only one.
B sounds most ducklings to me, so I'm going to go with B.
Which was the friar one?
That's B as well. An intellectually nonconformist friar investigates a series of mysterious deaths in an isolated alley.
Abby?
Yeah, he said Allie the second time, but Abby.
You could see him typing in friar, right?
I'd say B.
Dylan says B. Justine, which is the AI?
C.
Colin, which one would you say it is?
It's a good question. I'm brilliant and can never fall to robotic ruses, which is why I would correctly identify the AI plotline as C. A young and ambitious miner falls in love with a local saloon girl struggling to make it rich in a small town during the gold rush era.
It's a fake.
I don't know why this time around they added the Chat GPT gave me a title for the film.
Oh.
That one's called Golden Hearts.
Oh, that's good.
And it is a fake movie. It is not real.
You wrote Golden Hearts? Or the AI did?
The AI wrote Golden Hearts.
Oh, okay.
A is a real movie. That's Remains of the Day. B is a real movie, which you guys thought was fake. That's called The Name of the Rose from 1986.
What?
D is a real movie. That is The Wings of the Dove from 1997. Your next category is a mystery. These are all films from the 1980s to 1990s that are mysteries. Your job is to identify which is the AI-generated plot, as the rest of these are ripped from IMDb. As a lawyer investigates the murder of a colleague, he finds himself more connected to the crime than anyone else. That is A. B. A security pro finds his past returning to haunt him when he and his unique team are tasked with retrieving a particularly important item. C. 2 melancholy Hong Kong policemen fall in love, one with a mysterious female underworld figure, the other with a beautiful and ethereal waitress at a late-night restaurant he frequents. Ethereal is a really rude word to give someone with a lisp. Or D, when a group of curious children discover a series of cryptic messages hidden in their attic, they become obsessed with solving the mystery, but soon realize they may have uncovered a dark secret that threatens to destroy their families. Which is the AI?
Since we're in 80s and 90s, that thing they do in 80s and 90s movies, like when the stoner's taking the SATs and he just like goes all the way down. I'm going B again.
You're saying B. A security pro finds his past returning to haunt him. Okay. Brent says B.
What was A?
A is, as a lawyer investigates the murder of a colleague, he finds himself more connected to the crime than anyone else.
I go A.
What was C again?
C is the 2 melancholy Hong Kong policemen fall in love.
D.
Whoa. Okay.
A is 1990's Presumed Innocent. B, 1992 Sneakers. C, the Hong Kong one, is the Chungking Express from 1994. And D is an AI-generated plot.
It's a total fabrication.
You're really good at this. What are you going off? Break down your theory.
You guys know each other, though.
No, it's just in the air. I'm picking up radio waves.
You're good.
Man.
I'm telling you. When these fucking 16-figure freaks take over, I'm in good company. I'm going to be able to suss them out. The theoretical title they gave for that one is Whispers in the Attic.
Ooh.
I'm surprised no one has like picked out the names of like their plots. I guess they're just so vague.
It's like, way too vague. Like that's why I picked B, because that was like
a security pro finds his past returning to haunt him when he and his unique team are tasked.
His unique team? Like who writes like that? Apparently a human. Apparently an actual human.
The staff at IMDb. Yeah. Next up, your next genre of films is 80s action movies. Can you suss out the AI plot to these 80s action movies? When a peaceful farmer's family is brutally attacked by a local gang, he must use his farming skills to create makeshift weapons and fight back against the criminals seeking revenge for the death of his loved ones. B. A tough New York City ex-cop relentlessly searches for his kidnapped teenage daughter, who is held by a twisted psycho after mistaking her for the daughter of a wealthy businessman. C. a pilot sent into the Soviet Union on a mission to steal a prototype jet fighter that can be partially controlled by Neuralink? Or D, a trio of vacationing American students cross the border from Finland to the USSR during the Cold War and are soon imprisoned after a skirmish with the Soviet soldiers, which is the imposter in this bunch.
What was B again?
Tough New York City ex-cop relentlessly searches for his kidnapped teenage daughter.
And then C was the
A pilot is sent into the Soviet Union on a mission to steal a prototype jet fighter.
I go C.
It's either C or D, probably, right? So I'll go with D.
I'd say A or C. Say C.
A. When a peaceful farmer's family is brutally attacked by a local gang, he must use his farming skills and makeshift weapons. That's false. We made it up. That's the AI.
It's a fake.
Yeah.
The alternate title they gave was Harvest of Vengeance.
My heart was with A, but I also was like,
I think you're trying to throw this so that you don't look too suspicious. I think you're the AI. B, tough New York cop relentlessly searches kidnapped teenage daughter. That's Night of the Juggler. What the fuck is the title of that movie?
Whoa.
C, the pilot sent to the Soviet Union on a mission to steal a prototype jet fighter that can be partially controlled by a Neuralink. That movie is Firefox from 1982.
Clint Eastwood. Yeah.
And D, a trio of vacationing students across the border of Finland to the USSR. That's Born American. It's called.
I've never heard of that.
That sounds like such a bootleg.
Yeah.
What's that? Fucking Red Dawn, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what made me think it was fake, because I was like, that's just Red Dawn, but with fins.
Apparently, Born American in 1986. Bonus round, last one.
Okay.
This is we flip it up. This is a real plot to a real movie.
Uh-huh.
This time around, it's flipped up. One is the real title. The rest of them are false. You have to guess which one. I'll give you the plot first. The wars in your own backyard. Violent warfare erupts in Northern California when a Vietnam vet, Deacon Porter, reassembles his combat strike force to avenge the death of a commanding officer. Is the title of this film actually The Devastator, Warrior's Vow, Rage Field, or Blood Strike?
Oh my God.
And again, there's no shenanigans here. This is the real plot of a real movie. The wars in your own backyard. Period. I think they probably should have gone exclamation point on that, but I'm not going to get too editorial on the I.M.D.B. plot summaries. The wars in your own backyard. Violent warfare erupts in Northern California when Vietnam vet Deacon Porter reassembles his combat strike force to avenge the death of a commanding officer. Is it The Devastator, Warrior's Vow, Rage Field, or Blood Strike?
It's definitely Blood Strike.
it was B.
And you say Warrior's Vow?
Yeah. B.
I'll say A.
A is The Devastator.
Nice.
The real answer is Operation Fortune.
Or some fortune.
The real answer is that Dylan has taken the crown of the AI detector.
Detector.
Devastator?
It's called The Devastator, and you've never heard of this movie, which neither did I. But it's a I think it was also on the 80s action movie page. The war is in your own backyard. This one got tricky because I had to say, I'm pushing GPT to its limit. So when they take over, thank me for giving them the intel. I was like, one word of a movie, which isn't already the name of a movie. So like a movie title that hasn't been taken yet.
A one-word movie title that hasn't been taken yet.
And it took a couple tries, and we got Warrior's Vow is good. I think Warrior's Vow is way better than Devastator.
Blood Strike sounds very 80s.
It sounds very Rob Liefeld.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Great point. Very early 90s.
Yeah, I'm surprised both Rage Field and Blood Strike were not.
Rage Field is the funniest one. Though.
Yeah. Neither of them were taken. And I, of course, double checked it with IMDb.
Yeah.
And it's like, I mean, whatever. I'm sure they might be somewhere.
Yeah.
No, and I'll give you one
Check
again.
its work.
Yeah. And then you accept it. And then you accept it into your life. And then you realize that you're so much better letting it govern you. And then you give all power to the AI. Either makes me feel good for the robots or bad for us when the actual movies we make are indistinguishable.
Yeah.
It's kind of creepy. I don't know I don't know how many more rounds of this we'll get before I start having really bleak thoughts. Dylan, what are we watching next?
Hey everybody, thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Regal Movie Masters Unlimited. We got some movies next week for you. Sisu, that one's going to be a fun one. Y'all like literature? Because we also got Book Turned Into Movie. Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. Polite Society. Not too sure what that movie is about, but I'm excited. Somewhere in Queens, featuring Ray Romano from Everybody Loves Raymond fame. We also got Guy Ritchie's The Covenant, not to be confused with the 2006 Covenant featuring the vampires and the Winter Soldier, and he's a vampire and he's evil. Also, we just might watch Return of the Jedi. Anyways, everybody, see you at the movies. Bye.